I'd like to call upon to the stage the Director General of the Foreign Ministry, the Ambassador Dore, who is actually today the manager of the Foreign Relations of Israel. His time is very short, so I'm not going to elaborate. Dore, the floor is yours. I would like not to deal with the political struggles that we keep hearing about, but to focus more on identifying the main problem we have to cope with today. In my opinion, the problem that Israel must respond to is what I call the world order problem. It's not that we can solve the problem, but we have to understand it. Let me give you an anecdote where I started to begin this whole thing, to understand this whole thing. 20 years ago, I was the political advisor of Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister at that time, and I was invited to a conference. There were a few prime ministers between 1996 and 2016, but I was invited to a conference in Amman, in the Hashemite palace, and this was a conference that Prince Hassan arranged at the time. And this was a conference, and business people were there, academic people, civil servants, former people who were going to take positions in the future. And we're sitting there at the table, like in many conferences, of course not this one. The coffee breaks have a bigger value than the speeches. So I'm sitting there on the side, and somebody comes, approaches me, and he touches my shoulder, and I said, "Who is this man?" I look around, and it's the former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger. He said, "I heard about you, you have a new appointment," and he says to me, "Let's sit down for a minute," and he says, "What you lack, what you really need to develop is a code of conduct for the Middle East." I did as if I understand what he's saying, what he's talking about. I hadn't had a clue, and I waited to come back home to Jerusalem, and I went up to the library, and I took out the 3 volumes of the Kissinger memories. I went to the index of the books, and under C I looked for code of conduct, and I couldn't find it. The next day, I had to bring him for a meeting with the Prime Minister. We were in the aquarium. We're sitting there on those leather sofas. And I say, "Dr. Kissinger, I have to admit, I did not understand the concept you used, code of conduct. What is it?" So we have time, and he starts explaining. In 1971, he says, "I managed the negotiation on the SOC strategic agreement between the United States and the Soviet Union, which was the nuclear weaponry of the two sides." And he said that towards the end of the negotiations, he realized that he has a problem. He didn't want the United States to be in a situation whereby, on the one hand, there will be limitations on the strategic weaponry of the United States and the Soviet Union, and on the other hand, the Soviet Union is able to continue and to go wild, rampant in the third world. And that's exactly what happened in the 70s with the Cuban forces in Angola, Mozambique, the African Horn, and eventually the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. So he wanted a tool in order to limit and to deal with this scenario. So there's a scenario the nuclear scenario, the negotiation on the nuclear powers of both sides, and there's a scenario of the regional activity of the Soviet Union. And I asked him, and this was supposed to limit the Soviets. And he explained that either it will contribite to this world stability, United States and Soviet Union will come to a real détente, or at least they'll have a tool and it can use an international fora that can say that the Soviet Unions are violating the code of conduct, that we can represent this point to NATO or to journalists in the Congress. This was the basic idea. Now, at that time, our problem in 1996 was that we were negotiating with Yasser Arafat on the one hand, and on the other, anyone who opened the law book saw that the PLO was still involved in promoting terror, either by itself or in collaboration with the Hamas at that time. And we needed a tool to develop. And in the international arena, nobody was very interested because they wanted us to get directly to the core of the matter, the Israeli concessions of territory, ensuring the permanent agreement, and the idea that you have to change the conduct of one factor or the other wasn't so popular. And in my opinion, today, when we ask ourselves, how can we ensure security for Israel, regional security, at a time when we see more chaos and more disorder, we must go back to such ideas. And my words are not designated just to the Israeli policy, but to something much wider than that. When I studied political science in the Middle Ages sometime, we spoke about the level of analysis problem. How do you understand the point in order, the initial point how to solve a problem? Of course, people were focusing on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a source of all the problem in the region, but since the Arab Spring, it's obvious that these statements are irrelevant. However, if there is a level of analysis problem, if there's something that we have to focus on, is the contribution of the regional disorder, also the world one. The man I spoke to in '96, Henry Kissinger, recently wrote a book, World Order, exactly on that topic. This topic, maybe that's the heart of his last work. So if I can use that in order to look at the various issues at hand, I don't want to talk about the nuclear deal between the P5+1 and Iran. Enough was said. We're not going to go into a discussion. But there is a dilemma, and the dilemma is not just for Israel and its main partners, but it's a dilemma for the superpowers as well. What kind of conduct will we see on the part of Iran in the near future? If Iran decides that it has a golden opportunity to recover economically and to invest its greater resources in order to build schools, hospitals, roads, things that the man in the street in Iran actually wants? Or are we going to see more Iranian regional activity of occupation, of conquering, of exporting the revolution, the way it appears in the Iranian constitution? This is an open question. Sometimes you can obtain a signature of another country and to commit it or compel it according to the deal. The deal is a legal paper. Sometimes the code of conduct is the way, at least to reduce the scope of activity of the other party to jeopardize your essential interests. I must say that as for Iran, when I researched the foreign policy of Iran before I entered the office, and I wrote a book in 2009, one of the quotations I saw from Ali Khamenei was in an interview in 1991. He gave to a newspaper called Dore, and he asked himself the following question, and I'll read it in English.
In drawing up the national security strategy of the Islamic Republic of Iran? Do we look to preserving the integrity of our land, or do we look to expansion? Do we look to bast?
This is an Arab word that they took for the Farsi.
Expansion, or to hefez, preservation? We must definitely look to expansion. The Islamic Republic's survival depends on the support of a global Islamic force.
End of quote. So if this is the initial point, then we have a real problem, and we feel it in the Golan Heights, in Lebanon, and of course our neighbors in Bahrain, Yemen, and other places as well. But it's obvious that we need some sort of a way to deal with such policy. I will raise another subject that comes up quite often in our public discourse, and that is incitement. And I'm not going to screen a movie, but regarding incitement, this is a very severe topic, but there's a tendency to put it aside, not to focus on it. And I saw it for many years when I was involved in the negotiation with the Palestinians in 96, 97. You say incitement, thank you very much. Many people factors are not interested, but I have to tell you a story that I keep thinking about when you talk about incitement. When I was the Israeli ambassador to the UN, I had a friend, my colleague was the American ambassador in the UN. He died a few years ago. His name is Ricky Goldberg. And Goldberg wrote a book about his efforts to bring to an end the war in Bosnia. And in our first meeting, he gave me his book, To End the War. And I started reading the first pages, and Holbrook writes, there was a tendency to think that the war in Bosnia was a result of what we call ancient hatreds between the Serbs, Croats, Muslims, etc. And then he continues to write, but this is a mistake. The war derived from a policy of directed incitement of the Serbian regime in Belgrade. When I read that, I understood, just a second, incitement can be a source for a war. You have to deal with it. But where and how? Code of ethics, code of conduct. But again, I said that people usually didn't deal with these things, and today, when this incitement is not just a magazine from San Juan or something that 200 people read, but it's on Facebook, thousands of people read it, hundreds of thousands of people, we have a problem of national security.
So perhaps my final point, and it sounds like I'm taking patches and putting them together, but it all has to do with one another. It's not just a patchwork. In my current position, I travel around the Arab world, and I get to various capitals. And some of my work involves sitting with my counterpart. And formally, you sit down with your papers, that person sits down with their own papers, and often there are bullets, points for discussion for both sides. And in one of these visits, I took out my bullets, And he took out his, and he said, Dore, you start reading out what you have in your papers, what bullets you have. So I started to go one by one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he said, hold on. I thought I may have insulted him, maybe his national feelings, maybe I made a mistake. And he said, no, it's not a problem. He said, the problem is, and he says, I'm not telling you what country he was from. My problem, said the man, is that your points of discussion are identical to my points of discussion. The Israeli list was identical to that Arab countries list. And I'm telling you this because we are now entering a period of time where I said there was a lack of world order, and particularly in the Middle East. And in order to start and prepare the infrastructure and a basis for understanding, for security, for regional security arrangements, and ultimately for peace, we must ensure the rules of the game in the international system, and particularly in the regional system. We have some bones of contention and disagreements with countries around the world. Recently we're having problems with Europe, that's no secret. And many countries open up to Israel these days, and if you think we're isolated, you don't know what you're talking about. What we mostly have, though, and that is perhaps the dramatic change, is the openness of the Arab world to relations under the radar with Israel. We can communicate with almost every Arab country today, as long as we don't put it on the first page of the paper. On the front page of the paper. But what's good about the communication we have is the feeling, the sense that perhaps with a lot of work we will be able to create a consensus around the components that comprise a regional order, regional stability. It doesn't have to refer to borders and any conflict in the Middle East, but there needs to be an understanding of the rules of the game, agreement over the rules, over who is in the tent of the countries that contribute to the stability and who is outside the tent of countries, those who undermine this regional stability. And if we can manage to reach such initial primary understandings, we will be able to create a new region. But if we will not be aware of the nature of the problem with which we must contend and respond to, any negotiation or any detail between us and the Palestinians or between us and any other neighbor, any detail would not be enough in order to ensure a better future that we all deserve. That's it.